Welcome back. Mike Apple is off today. Joining us, 680 News business editor Kris McCusker. Good morning. An earlier start to the day for you.
Yes, well, it's not so bad. I mean, you and I were just speaking. Once you're out of bed, the rest of it's fine.
It's uphill or downhill.
Downhill. That's it.
See, this is still asleep sometimes. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Early this morning.
Yeah, it's a whole different world for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, let's start with oil taking another hit in pre-market in the pre-market after its worst week.
Yeah, its worst week this year, Faiza. It was down by almost 8% last week. It's close to a 3-week low right now, down by about $3 this morning. And really the narrative on this is the same. There are concerns about rising COVID cases in the U.S. and China. Of course, those are the two largest oil-consuming nations, so we continue to see oil sort of beaten down. The U.S. Federal Reserve talking about easing stimulus also gives lift to the U.S. dollar, which impacts commodities as well. As one analyst puts it, oil basically seeing a loss of momentum, although some analysts I've spoken to have said it's likely to be short-lived. We don't have any official word yet, but gas prices likely to drop. So it's a good news, bad news scenario, I guess.
Okay, and lots for investors to consider this week, earnings and infrastructure bill in the U.S. being one.
Yes, the infrastructure bill in the U.S. a little closer to reality. Now, we've got a mixed picture on U.S. futures markets this morning, and markets are coming off records. We did see gains on both sides of the border last week as well, with both Wall Street and Bay Street closing at all-time highs on Friday. So a number of earnings reports to think about for investors this week. We are going to hear from BioNTech. This is one of the makers of the COVID-19 vaccine. That company reports earnings, along with meme stock favorite AMC. Shares in AMC, by the way, up by 1,400% this year. So both of those companies set to report today. We're going to hear from Canada Goose tomorrow, and then U.S. inflation data on Wednesday. And of course, there's been a lot of talk about inflation, in particular in the U.S., higher prices for just about everything. And that potentially could sort of change the path for the U.S. central bank. We did get a better than expected jobs report out of the U.S. on Friday, which has already potentially changed the path for the central bank in the U.S. Easing of stimulus likely coming soon. So a lot still up in the air, a lot of question marks, and of course COVID-19, as has been the case for 16 months, still the wild card.
Okay, the games are over. Our Canadian athletes have made us proud, but we're learning more about the Olympics and how it did not come cheap.
No, it did not. And we're getting a rough estimate on the final price tag. We're talking about $15 billion U.S. $15 billion. I know, it's crazy.
Big number.
And it's 22% higher because the games were postponed. So that 1-year delay actually meant that it cost more. The bill will be paid for by Tokyo organizers, the Tokyo government, and Japan's central government, with the host city picking up the biggest chunk. Now, one sort of unfortunate part in all of this, Faiza, there was an expectation of $816 million in revenue for the fans attending the games. That number will be close to zero. And then you add on to that the fact the key reason Japan wanted to host was to boost tourism. Anyway, 60 Japanese companies, including Toyota and Panasonic, paid a record of more than $3 billion to sponsor the games, and then added another $200 million after the games were suspended. So yes, not a cheap affair.
At all.
And I know it's going to be a long time for them to recover. And now we're turning to Beijing for more Olympics in 6 months.
Okay, Kris, thank you for joining us today. I guess you'll be in all week, right?
I will, yes. So I'll see you dark and early tomorrow.
Once again, we'll do it again. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Have a good day.
You too. Time now, 6:18 a.m. After the break, we have a CityNews report from Vancouver about a travel loophole that could see thousands of unvaccinated U.S. visitors entering the country.